Well, I'll have to start from the beginning. I was born in Jacksonville, Florida, came up in 1956. I had a scholarship to Morris Brown in Atlanta, but I chose to come here. I had music on my mind, so I did that. I had a coach that was coming up, was working on his master's degree at NYU, and I told him I was going to ride up because he was driving. I said, I'll help you drive. He said, do your mom and daddy know you plan not to go to school? I said, no, not yet, but they will know it. He said, they'll know it now because I'm going to go over and tell them. So he went and told my mother and daddy what my plans was, and he did reverse psychology on me. He said, okay, he said, I'm going to New York City, but you're going to Albany. He said, I guarantee you in about a couple of years, you'll see, he said, see all these junkies around here? He said, you'll be right out on the street with them. That was reverse psychology that he used on me, but it worked. So that was 56, 57, 58, he came back. My name was on the marquee at the Apollo Theater. I was in the Apollo Theater with Jackie Wilson, Lola Willie John, Fats Domino, and he came up the street. I said, well, it worked. I said, come on, let me take you to lunch. He said, what worked? I said, there's our name up top. So it happened, you know. And we did good. We had 5 major hits through the country. The group was called the Fidelities. We had The Things I Love, Walk with the Wind, Members of You, Captain of My Ship. And we had five major hits, and it worked well. So then we came back here, and there was a need for what we were doing. I started a band. After the records died out, we started a band, me and Maurice Newton. Maurice Newton was from Jacksonville. Okay, so the plan was to have him come up. I came up in 56, he came up in 57. And we revamped the group. I already had a group started. We revamped the group, made him the lead singer. I sang 5 parts. So we didn't miss anything. What was missing, I sang. And we had the hits. He stayed with my mom and dad. My mom and dad didn't know him, didn't know he was coming. And I said, we got a rumor. She said, yeah. I said, this is Maurice Newton. She said, okay, I don't know him, but if he stays in this house, he's got to go to church. So he had to go to church. So he stayed with us until he fell in love and got married. Then after that, we started another group called Miss Maggie's Children, where we worked everywhere, you know. And we did that, and then the civil rights came in. I started buying properties. So I bought like 1, 2, 3, I had 3 pieces of property. I had a piece on Phillip Street on the south end, and it was in the census tract of Trinity. Trinity was a nonprofit. We started a program, a neighborhood program for the betterment of the community. That's where Olivia Aurori came from, Ann Freeland, Leon Van Dyke. I chaired that program. It was called SNCAP. You remember SNCAP? No. It was called SNCAP, South End Neighborhood Association. And we got grant money because the city administration didn't want it because it was called anti-poverty money. Anything with an anti-poverty on it, the mayor of the city, Corning, didn't want nothing to do with it. So we lost a lot of money. The money went north, it went everywhere but here. So we started the single action program. We got workers and we hired them. We had George Bunch as the director of the association. And it worked for a while until we started the Brothers. When we started the Brothers, a lot of them didn't live in the census tract, so we had to get out of there. The cops would watch us every night, because you don't have 25 or 30 black guys meeting on nowhere, not on the street corner, nowhere. So we started the Brothers organization, and we moved uptown on Pearl Street, North Pearl. And from that's when everything started. Really started. We started picking and demonstrate. We had what we would do. Anybody had any trouble, any problems that they couldn't solve, we had people that would tell them where to go and how to go. You know, how to do it. Well, a lot of people thought we were troublemakers, but we wasn't. We wasn't troublemakers. We were there to help. When the little riot took off in the 60s, we seized it. We stopped it, by telling these kids, you're going to go to jail. You go to jail, your mom and dad don't have no money to get you out. You're going up the road. And we stopped it. A lot of people said it was our fault, but because it happened in our area, but we had nothing to do with the riot.
I'd like to hear more about the riot. Please educate me. I read a little bit in the news.
Well, what happened, I think a kid, somebody slapped a kid in the neighborhood or something. And it came from that.
Was it a white person that slapped?
Yeah.
And this happened in Albany?
Yes, it was. It was on Pearl Street. Pearl and Columbia. There was a grocery store there. Pearl and Columbia. And the people they started, They said they wasn't having it, So they started breaking people's windows as they come by, but it didn't move too far. It went up by the palace and up Pearl a little ways, but not too far. But we kind of stopped it. We were able to stop it. So those are the good things that happened that they didn't talk about. They only talked about the bad things. They said those brothers did that, but we had nothing to do with it.
Did you ever get recognition for the fact that you were good guys?
City administration did it about 20 years later. They had a program at City Hall, and they acknowledged us, and they gave us all a plaque. We've been to City Hall twice since then. Since the new mayor, she acknowledged us about 2 years ago. And it was a good feeling to know that you did something good, your intentions were good, you raised your kids through this. My kids were small. They didn't know what they were picketing for. I would have them out there, my wife, myself, we would all be picketing, demonstrating. Yeah.
I'd love to hear some details about the different demonstrations. Did you?
All we needed was a cause.
I'd love to hear about some of those causes.
Okay, where should I start? Oh, the $5 vote. That was one. The administration would pay, the Democrats would pay you $5 for your vote. Okay? So my dad, he went down to vote, and they started to give him $5, and the guy looked at him and said, no, that's Earl Thorpe's dad, it's a setup. So they didn't give him the $5, so Dad came back home and said, hey, man, you stopped me from getting my $5. I said, well, here's $5, take it. That's a better $5 than you would get for selling your soul. And he understood what I was saying then. He couldn't understand it right away, but he understood it later, And he knew what we were doing for the betterment of the community, for the betterment of everybody. And that's what we did. We picketed the mayor, went out to his house. We were represented by a lot. The neighborhood group was recommended, had recommendations from everybody. Every denomination was recognized, through the neighborhood group. So they couldn't say that we were that rebelized. And when we moved out, we still had Father Trimley, Father O'Brien, but Father O'Brien was too what's the word should I use? He was too, they call him a rubber rouser. That's what they called him, a rubber rouser, because he was for what we were doing. And they moved him out of here. He didn't stay too long.
The brothers must have been influenced by the national figures and maybe some of the other local figures at the time. Did you turn toward other leaders for inspiration?
Well, there was always the Panther, but the Panthers was a little more radical than we was. We didn't have no guns. We never turned the other cheek. We believe in Dr. King, but we didn't turn the other cheek. But we took care of ourselves and our families and everybody that was around. Yeah. And we would go to jail. There was somebody to bail them out because I had the property. So I would put the property up and we'd get out of jail.
Let's talk about the difference between those times and what's going on in the last 5 years. Would you like to speak about that?
Well, it's quite a difference because back in those days, we had a handle on the kids. You know, we knew all the parents. We could go to the parents and tell them what's going on, and then the parents would listen, and the kids would listen. Today's kid, when you got babies having babies, and you got that cancer, which is welfare, I call it legal cancer. You know, so it just trickled down from one family to the other. And that's what we were trying to stop, you know, because once you start, you know, your family is on it, and then you have a kid, and you know anything 15 years later, your kid's on it. So it's a disease.
You've seen a lot of change over the years.
Oh, yeah.
The family unit.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And you're worried about that.
Yeah, I do, because I educated 5 kids. 5 kids with 5 master's degrees and 2 of them in a PhD program. And I'm here to talk about it, and we're still together. I'm still with the same wife, which is very unusual. Yeah.
Well, you read the papers. What about what you read in the papers about the other issues besides welfare? There's a lot going on in the country now. Let's hear your thoughts.
Well, we have a guy, his name is Trump. He's in the White House, and he's trying to take us back. He wants things like they used to be. What's the slogan on his hat? Let's make America great again, when America wasn't great. So if he's saying making it great, he wants to take us back to slavery. It's just that simple.
Nothing great about that.
No. Well, you got people that got kids in concentration camps. He's running around playing golf every other week. And he really don't care about minority people and people of color. He just he don't like them at all. And it shows that he don't.
Mr. Thorpe, you're saying some really important and, courageous things.
Yes, I did.
And we've got a situation that Dr. Alice Green talks about with the prisons, and we've got police and neighborhood situations all around the country. I'd sure like to hear what you think about that aspect of what's going on these days.
Well, they got guns out here. You can go buy a gun. Any kid could go buy a gun. That shouldn't happen. And that's half of your problem right there. Kids buying guns and never had a gun lesson in their life. That's why innocent people get shot, because they never learned to fire a gun. You follow me? And then when they fire it, they don't know why they fired it. And then you need fathers to be fathers. You don't go around and have 3 or 4 kids by 3 or 4 different women, and you're not able to take care of any of them. I don't brand everybody like that. It happens with white and black. They're multiplying, but don't know why they're multiplying. You're having something that you can't take care of. First thing you need is to get an education. He or she needs an education. I would steer them in that direction, number one, because literacy is back worse than ever. You got a grown man with a 5th grade reading on a 5th grade reading level. He's going nowhere. He or she's not going anyplace. You know what I mean? So I would advise them to educate themselves and the people around them. That's what I did. Yeah. The phone should be limited. We were out to lunch last night, and my grandson, I said, hey, buddy, we're getting ready to have dinner. We're getting ready to bless the table, and you're getting ready to put that phone down. It's too much phone, So he said, yeah, Pop, and he did it. It's just only so much social media you need to be on, because it could lead to trouble. You start meeting weird characters, and it's happening, child molesters and things like that. They're on the phone, and they're waiting to pick them up or whatever, Well, number one, coming out of the South, like I stated before, coming out of the South, I rode on the back of the bus. All right? Any of my people could have been Rosa Parks. My grandmother, my aunt, all of them, anybody, because they were going out doing what they call days work in the white community. Okay? And they would have to get up and give somebody their seats. I lived in a nice area. We used to take over the bus in Jacksonville, Florida, because there was so many of us. They had a line that you couldn't pass that line. So we said, well, you need another bus. So we started taking over the bus. And so when I came here, I said, I'm running in the same thing that just happened. You know what I mean? Not racism, but to a degree I am, you know? You had the same problems. You had the same problems, you know? So I found a need for that. And I was a homeowner, but I was concerned about my neighborhood and my people in the neighborhood. Jobs, no jobs. In the building trades. Schaefer Brewery, Niagara Mohawk, all these places wasn't hiring. They weren't hiring us. They were hiring, but wasn't hiring us. So what happened with Schaefer Brewery, they would send the trucks in the neighborhood. You know, with the beer, we would take black paint and spray the windshield black. So that black paint dries fast. He needed another truck. So he had to call and get another truck. So finally they said that we would meet with you guys and we would have some jobs for you. They had a meeting and they sent a representative. We said, we don't want to see him. We want to see Bill Schaefer. That's who owns the company. We want to see Bill Schaefer. And Bill Schaefer came down to the brothers and said there was X amount of jobs, and we went to work. I went to work for Schaefer. I didn't want to go, but I went because I ran my mouth. Now it's time to go to work. So it was about 5 or 6 of us went to work for Schaefer Brewery. So that's how we did it. We'd pick it and demonstrate. But when you pick it and demonstrate, you got to have people to put on those jobs because they'll call you bluff. And we didn't allow them to call our bluffs because we had people waiting in the wing for a job.
Who came up with the name The Brothers? Where did that come from?
All of us. Well, everybody's a brother and a sister. You know, that's the way we looked at it. So everybody was our brother in the neighborhood. So that's where it came from. Well, I think we were real, what was the word you asked?
Tell me how effective the brothers were in this area.
The brothers were very effective because we started the trash removal. They used to have trucks that would come to your house and pick up your rubbish. And it was like $2 a barrel. So once we started picking about trash removal, because people was throwing trash in the backyard because they didn't have the money to pay for trash removal. Once we did that, we really got the notoriety that we were looking for. And there were so many other good things that we did. A lot of good things that we did. I can't come right off the top of my head with it now, but we were just good for the community. They could come to us and we could solve their problems. Problems on the jobs, we would go down and speak to the representative of the jobs, you know. Yeah. And with any purpose. Any purpose. Yeah. That's what we were for. That's what we were for.
One more kind of detailed question about the brothers. Was it a fixed group of 6, 7, 8 guys?
We never let people know how many numbers it was. That's the secret to the group. We could come up any given time with 50 people. Any given time to march on you. Any given time. It wouldn't only be us, it would be women too. Word of mouth, door to door. Word of mouth, door to door. Yeah. Well, we had telephones. Yeah, we had telephones. We had no social media. That was before social media, you know. So that's how we did it. And we had followers, you know. Yeah.
Your followers were, following you on the street, not on the phone.
Yeah, but and we also had support from State University, all the colleges. The kids would come out and pick and demonstrate with us. We had one guy came and he was picketing and he wanted to know why didn't he get arrested. I said they didn't arrest you because they didn't know who your dad might have been. Think about it. You know?
Yeah, I'll jump in and like, yeah, different for a white kid.
That's right. You fool around and you arrest a lawyer's son, you know, you're in trouble. You
Has
know?
anything changed, Mr. Thorpe? Do you, what,
Yeah, there's been changes. There has been changes, but like I said, it was good for a long time, for a while, and now we seem to be degressing. We're going back to where we started, which is, it's a waste. What are you going to do about it? We're going to have to bite the bullet and keep moving. We could do it at the ballot box.
Do you think that the activists of today will be able to achieve that with social media, with the easy ways of getting the word out?
I think you would, because you have the nucleus now to do that. Back then, we did it, and we didn't have the nucleus. All we had was the newspaper, Knickerbocker News and the Times Union, and some of the reporters wouldn't come down and do the news because they were afraid of their jobs.
on the other hand, do you think the young people today might not get out on the streets where they need to be seen? Are you seeing them getting out on the streets in Albany the way they should?
No.
Or
No, I don't see that.
talk about that.
You got that cell phone, and that's taking up all the attention with the games and whatever. That's where they don't exercise like they used to back in the day, because they go home and they eat, and there you go. They go to their rooms and there they go. They texting all day long, or playing games, and you need less of that and more of education. Well, what we do, we go to the various colleges, and me and one of the other brothers, Purcell McDowell, we invited to the colleges a lot. And sometimes we go with Bill that had the newspaper, Ironweed. He goes with us, and Alice Green sometimes goes. And we set up a forum, and we have a question and answer period, so they'll know where we're going and where we came from. That's the best way to do it, and we've been invited out a lot, And the film, you can get one film at the library.
Have you had any shocking experiences where you're at one of these forums and a young person asks you a question or makes a comment and you go, oh my goodness, they just don't know?
That's all the time in the street. There's no respect. See, in order to get respect, you got to give it. That's where you go back to the home.
Can you give us a story about something that happened?
I'll give you something happened today. I went to pick up a pot at Central Avenue, and I was standing up, and the lady opened up a pocketbook, and I was standing behind her. And she looked at me, and she looked at the money, and she looked at me. She looked at the money, and she looked at me. I said, honey, I don't have no intentions of robbing you. I got a credit card and $2.50 more than the rent. So I wouldn't be trying. She said, well, I said, that's what I got. That's what I gathered. So it still exists. This is the day. Yeah, at Home Depot today. She apologized. I accepted it, but I know the looks that she gave me. I know what she was thinking. There's a black guy getting ready to rob me. I ain't want to rob her. I got 2 credit cards and $2.50, so I'm able to get anything I want.
You were talking earlier about coming up from Jacksonville, Florida, coming up here, and it was no different. I wonder if you have a story about that situation you'd like to share.
Well, it was before the Civil Rights Movement. So Albany had its own problems. You know, bad housing, roach-infested housing. I didn't have that in Jacksonville. We own our own home. We didn't have no roach-infected houses. That's what we fought about too, was, you know, people couldn't, Abbott and Kurtz was the slum landlords. They owned most of the properties in the city. So we was fighting him too. Masery was the manager, and we would have him up, and we were fighting him too. Well, people were afraid of us, but we wasn't afraid. We had no fear. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? We had no fear. We were doing what we were supposed to do for the betterment of the community and our people. Not only black people, white people too, because there were poor whites in the neighborhood as well as poor blacks. We were concerned about our neighborhood. So there were so many stories, so many I can't remember all of them, you know?
Did you take your children on any of the pickets?
Yeah, I explained it to you before. My daughters, about 3 years ago, they came and Irene ran a film, and they said, "Oh my God." They said, "That's what we were doing, Dad." I said, "That's what you were doing." Yeah, at first my mother didn't want me out on the picket lines with her grandkids. You know what I mean? I said, well, we're fighting for them. A month later, my mother was on the picket line. Okay?
Was that about roaches? Was that about...
No, it wasn't.
What was that about?
It was about the trash removal and the $5 vote, which was infested within the city. You know, they bought you. The ministers were bought. The ministers had jobs. They had token jobs through the city administration. They were inspectors, houses inspectors, you know, and they had jobs, the black ministers. So they had a no-show job. So everybody was happy till we came on the scene, and then we upset a lot of things.
Did you have any periods of time where nothing was happening, everything was okay?
Well, we made it okay. We just made it okay. You know, you live with it and you learn to deal with it the best of your ability. And I think we did a damn good job.
Let's talk about the brothers and being vets. Let's hear about that.
Well, I know of 7 or 8 of them were Korean War veterans. You know, they fought for their benefits. A lot of them were able to get the benefits later after we started, you know, letting them know that these guys were available and they wasn't getting their just due, you know. Now names, I won't mention names, but they wasn't getting their just due. You know, there's a lot of benefits through the VA system that, you know, back pay and all that they wasn't getting.
Can you tell me whether that's changed? Have you heard any?
I don't know. I'm not on it now. I've been away from it, you know, since, you know, I got older. I got away from a lot of things. I don't see a lot of things, but what I see, I speak on it. I'm affiliated with my church, very active in my church. I'm a deacon in my church, one of the vocalists in my church. So music has me. I'm bound by music, and you could say anything in music. The Brothers was active from around 64, 65, 66, 67. We did the March on Washington. A lot of us attended March on Washington with Martin Luther King. I think that was 65. Yeah. And then we had a good friend. She worked in our office. I just sang did her eulogy. Vera Michelson was very, very active with us. Yeah, she wasn't afraid. She came from Massachusetts and she worked in the group, you know, as a secretary when a lot of our people were afraid because they didn't know what was going to happen. We got rocks thrown and window broke a lot of times, you know, at night after we were gone. So a lot of people were afraid of getting hurt, you know. But Vera wasn't. God rest her soul.
When did you guys, not disband, but when did you kind of just, not cease, but when did activity start to slow down for the brothers? A year?
I would say early 70s, because we stayed a part of different things. We were a part, but you know, everybody got the jobs, had families to raise, so you had a new look on life. You know what I mean?
How did that march, that time, change you, Mr. Thorpe? How did that experience going to Washington change you?
That was the biggest thrill I ever had in my life, just to see so many people gather for the cause at one given time. You can't explain it. I did both of them. I did the other one with Abernathy, the next march after Dr. King was dead, but it wasn't as forceful as the first one. You know?
You say that your mother was sometimes a little apprehensive about your activities. Can you tell us a story about that?
Well, she was afraid for me. She knew that what I was going through in Jacksonville. Now she said he's up north, he's starting the same thing all over again. You know what I mean? And I was an only child, and they were afraid for me. They were afraid for me down there. Dad was glad I didn't go to school down there. He said, Earl, you can't talk to these white people the way you talk. I remember the time that I had just prepared the dinner for my dad. My dad's sitting at the dinner table. Up comes this guy. He's going to sell him a vacuum cleaner. 5 o'clock in the evening. I'm looking at him. I say, he said, it's Thorpe home. I said, junior, senior. He said, senior. I said, then you want Mr. Thorpe. You don't say that in 1953, 54. You don't do that. He looked at me. I said, yeah, that's who you want. He said, can I speak to him? I said, my dad's having his dinner now. And who is it, Earl? I told him, you know, Dad was a little scared, you know. I said, Dad, if you don't eat, your food's going to be cold. Eat your food. He said, what are you trying to sell me? What are you trying to sell? He said, a vacuum cleaner. I said, Earl Thorpe Jr. does the vacuuming. Earl Thorpe Sr. does the vacuuming. That's me. I don't need 2 vacuums because I only have 2 hands. You know what I mean? So he said, the guy said, the answer, you got a little snazzy little boy there. He's got to watch his tongue. I said, I ain't got to watch nothing. I don't have to watch anything. From that time on, it was kill or be killed. That's the way we lived in Florida, Jacksonville. You hurt me, I'm going to hurt you. Die, you're going to die. But you'll be dying for the cause. My daughter was the first black tulip queen. Tamara Thorpe, she was the first black tulip queen, so we didn't do that bad, did we?
Should be a lot of photos of that. That would be great. Congratulations.
Yeah.
And where is she now?
She's a principal in one of the school systems. She's getting ready to make a lateral move, but she's still in the school system.
We're talking Albany City?
No, that's another story.
You don't want to talk? You don't
That's
want to
another
share
story.
that?
That's another story.
All right, you don't have to share.
That's another story off camera. I'll tell you
Okay,
something.
you got
Yeah.